There's nothing worse than being in the middle of a heated argument and realizing that you're losing. Whether it's with your significant other, your friend, or even a complete stranger, no one likes feeling like they're losing an argument. And unfortunately, sometimes people can be really good at convincing others that they're right, even when they're not. Arguing with these personalities can be frustrating, and it's easy to get drawn into their game. But there are some psychological tricks that you can use to keep cool and win any argument. Watch this video all the way through to benefit from these 8 tricks to help you come out on top. Tip number 8 is the most effective. So let's get into it. Number 1, try to use you statements. When you're in an argument, it's easy to start attacking the other person. But when you do this, all it does is make the other person defensive and less likely to listen to what you have to say. Instead of attacking, try to use a you statement to reframe the issue. For example, instead of saying, "You're being ridiculous," try this: "I understand that you feel strongly about this issue." This will make the other person feel heard and understood, and they'll be more open to hearing what you have to say. Number 2, listen more than you talk. It's easy to get caught up in trying to make your own point and to prove that you're right. But the reality is, the more you talk, the less likely you are to actually listen to what the other person is saying. Instead of talking over the other person, try to really listen to what they're saying. Not only will this make the other person feel heard, but you may also learn something new. And who knows, you might even end up changing your own opinion on the issue. Number 3, try to understand the other person's point of view. When you're in an argument, it's easy to get so wrapped up in your own point of view that you forget to try and understand where the other person's coming from. But if you can take a step back and try to see things from the other person's perspective, you may be surprised at how much it changes the tone of the argument. So instead of getting defensive, try to understand where the other person's coming from. You may not agree with their point of view, but at least you'll be able to see things from their perspective. Maybe you'll be able to find some common ground after all. Number 4, use I statements. Like you statements, I statements can help to reframe an argument in a way that is less confrontational. For example, instead of saying, "You're wrong," try saying, "Well, I see things differently." Using I statements also helps to take back the focus off the other person and put it back on you. This can be especially helpful if you find yourself getting defensive. By using the I statements, you can refocus the argument on your point of views instead of getting caught up in trying to prove the other person wrong. Number 5, avoid yes or no questions. When you're in an argument, it can be tempting to ask the other person yes or no questions in order to try and trap them. But this will only make the other person defensive and less likely to listen to what you have to say. Instead of asking yes or no questions, try to ask more open-ended questions that encourage the other person to elaborate on their point of view. This will not only make the other person more open to hearing what you have to say, but it'll also help you better understand their point of view. The more you hear from them, the greater the chance of coming to a common understanding and ultimately resolving the argument. Number 6, avoid labeling. When you're in an argument, it's easy to start labeling the other person. For example, you might say that you're stupid or irrational. But not only is this insulting, it's also not likely to help you win the argument. Instead of labeling the other person, try to focus on the issues at hand. This will help to keep the argument focused on and on track. It will also make the other person more likely to listen to what you have to say. Number 7, be aware of your tone. Your tone of voice can be just as important as the words you use when you're in an argument. If you're yelling, the other person is likely to get defensive and tune you out. But if you're calm and collected, the other person is more likely to listen to what you have to say. Number 8, and the one we think is most effective, is to stay calm and collected. This one's definitely easier said than done, but it's important to remember that staying calm is the key to any argument. When you get emotional, it's easy to start saying things that you don't actually mean, and quite often some things that you might regret. Not to mention, it's also harder to think clearly when you're feeling angry or upset. So take a deep breath, count to 10, and try to remain calm throughout the argument. An argument starts, and before you know it, you're both yelling and saying irrational things that you probably didn't intend to say. Some of the most intense arguments are with those that we care about the most. This is because typically, we are more passionate about topics involving this relationship. The ability to win arguments and persuade other people is a skill that can give you a competitive advantage in any scenario, and it will increase your confidence. The next time you find yourself in an argument, try one of these 8 psychological tricks to come out on top. If you've stuck around this long, you've already helped out this channel so much just by watching. So thank you. And if you found this video helpful, please consider hitting the subscribe button and bell icon so that you don't miss our next video. We'll see you next time for some more Quotable Wisdom.